Welcome to this explainer. We're jumping right into something incredibly fascinating today, and frankly, a little chilling. We are looking at the absolute dawn of AI warfare. If you're trying to figure out how the very foundations of global security, basic truth, and our everyday infrastructure are shifting right under our feet, well, you're in exactly the right place. Let's get into it.
At 3:17 a.m., the first city went dark. Okay, I want you to picture a scenario pulled straight from a near-future simulation. They call it City Zero. Imagine waking up and traffic lights have suddenly frozen green in every single direction. Autonomous buses are just dead in the water in the middle of major intersections. Emergency dispatch centers completely offline. And up above, hundreds of delivery and maintenance drones are just hovering aimlessly. There are no bombs falling, no armies are marching, but the entire city is totally paralyzed.
Now, you might be wondering what caused it. The most terrifying part of this collapse is that the attack didn't actually break the system from the outside. It literally became the system. Highly automated city infrastructures were quietly manipulated from within their own networks. The systems trusted these hostile commands simply because they looked perfectly legitimate. It's wild to think about, but the very automation we rely on for everyday convenience was flipped into an invisible weapon. So, this brings us to the ultimate question. Could this City Zero simulation actually happen in real life? As you can see, the new battlefield completely blurs the line between physical kinetic force and digital cognitive strikes. And as we dive into the real-world military intelligence from our source materials today, we're going to see that, yeah, the building blocks for this exact type of warfare, they're already here.
Section 1. Anatomy of the Digital Battlefield. Algorithms and Autonomy.
We're witnessing a massive shift away from traditional warfare into a truly digital arena. And the most direct, intense version of this is LAWS. That stands for Lethal Autonomous Weapon Systems. We're talking about machines programmed to select and attack targets completely on their own, zero human intervention required. And we are dangerously close to this being our everyday reality. Take a look at a recent UN report, which detailed the use of a Turkish-built STM Kargudu drone in Libya. This drone reportedly had the programming to attack targets without even needing a data connection back to an operator. It had a genuine fire, forget, and find capability. The machine itself was making the ultimate life or death decision.
But this autonomy goes way beyond just single weapons. Militaries today are using AI to process a mind-boggling amount of data. Through major initiatives like the U.S. military's Project Maven or the Joint All-Domain Command and Control System, armed forces are building what they call fusion architectures. Basically, this means they're taking real-time data from everywhere, low Earth orbit satellites, autonomous drone swarms, even everyday social media feeds, and fusing it all together. They are building an ecosystem of constant, absolute surveillance, allowing AI to pinpoint targets and suggest actions at a speed that literally no human could ever match. The really crucial takeaway here is the massive paradigm shift. Think about traditional warfare. It was all about physical borders, kinetic force, like bullets and bombs, and very clearly defined military targets. AI warfare, on the other hand, it has absolutely no borders. It relies on cognitive and cyber force, and most importantly, it pushes the battlefield directly into civilian life. Time compresses because algorithms work in milliseconds, while the actual space of the battlefield expands to cover the entire globe.
Section 2. Weaponizing the Information Ecosystem. Cognitive Warfare.
I just want to let this number sink in for a second. According to a 2025 report by the Bloomsbury Intelligence and Security Institute, or BISI, 50% of all web content is now AI-generated. Even crazier, bot traffic has officially surpassed human activity on the internet. Half of the digital world we interact with every single day is totally synthetic. So, it turns out that person you were arguing with online was probably just a server rack somewhere.
And here is exactly how that synthetic environment gets weaponized, through something called the Pravda Network Data Poisoning Cycle. Attackers aren't just trying to trick you directly anymore. They're actually poisoning the well. Step 1. They infiltrate the training data of major AI chatbots. Step 2. These chatbots, which users trust as neutral, helpful sources, end up delivering state-sponsored propaganda. And step 3, trusting users unknowingly share and amplify those narratives, which then generates brand new, contaminated training data for the next generation of AI. It's this vicious, self-reinforcing loop that breaks our knowledge infrastructure from the inside out. And it gets so much more personal. The Galaxy system is a perfect example of how AI takes us from old-school mass propaganda to precision influence, operating at an industrial scale. By maintaining these incredibly detailed, hyper-personalized psychological profiles on U.S. lawmakers and thousands of influencers, AI can craft persuasive content that is perfectly tailored to an individual's specific vulnerabilities. I mean, this level of customized manipulation was just flat-out impossible before AI.
Section 3. The verification paradox. The collapse of trust.
The line separating psychological aberrations from real physical combat is pretty much vanishing. Look at the 12-Day War. During that conflict, deepfakes showing fabricated missile strikes and downed fighter jets spread across the globe in multiple languages within just hours of actual kinetic strikes happening. This sets up a truly terrifying trap for society, known as the verification paradox. Because AI can clone voices with just a tiny snippet of audio or literally create realistic video out of thin air, we are faced with an impossible choice. On one hand, we could demand universal verification for absolutely every piece of information, but that would totally paralyze critical things like medical emergency responses, counterterrorism, and breaking news. Or, on the other hand, we accept information without verifying it, just to maintain speed, and invite massive, widespread exploitation. This setup hands attackers a massive asymmetric warfare advantage. Think of it like a seesaw, where the bad guys have all the leverage. For an attacker, the cost to generate a deepfake is incredibly low, and their goal is so simple: just slip one successful fake through the cracks. Meanwhile, the defender is looking at exorbitantly high costs, having to build and maintain near-perfect detection systems. It creates this ratchet effect, where the attacks are happening at lightning-fast algorithmic speeds, while the defense is hopelessly bogged down by slow, manual human verification.
The real-world consequence of all this asymmetry is a heavy psychological toll. The BIS report actually gives this a name: epistemic learned helplessness. When a population is constantly hit with chronic anxiety over what's real and what's fake, that cognitive burden just becomes unsustainable. Eventually, people basically throw their hands up and abandon truth-seeking altogether. They retreat into their own trusted ideological bubbles. And, as we know, a population that can't agree on a basic shared reality cannot effectively govern itself.
Section 4. Who controls the future? Structural governance challenges. How do these systemic vulnerabilities actually impact different types of societies? Well, the sources point out a pretty chilling dynamic, something called a structural democratic disadvantage. The very core principles of an open democracy, things like public records, the free flow of information, transparent voting data, these things actually serve as open-source targeting data for adversarial AI systems. Authoritarian systems can easily restrict information and stay opaque, but democracies can't just close off those information flows without destroying their own foundations. It is a fundamental inherent vulnerability.
And these vulnerabilities compound into some truly massive global threats. We aren't just talking about nation-states here. Extremist networks are now using violence as a service. They're deploying AI to target and psychologically groom vulnerable minors at an algorithmic scale, completely bypassing the old, slow human bottlenecks of radicalization. And while the world tries to figure out a response, we're stuck in massive regulatory fragmentation. There are over 260 different global AI bills right now. Legitimate developers are drowning in compliance, while bad actors just exploit the gaps, setting up shop in whatever jurisdictions let them get away with it.
So where exactly is all of this heading? The BSI report maps out a pretty grim timeline,
Within just 3 months, they predict organizations will be forced into adopting costly zero-trust protocols. Within 12 months, AI disinformation is expected to completely and definitively outpace our detection capabilities. And looking ahead to 2027 or 2028, we are facing the realistic possibility of a complete information ecosystem collapse. If synthetic content pushes past 80% and our detection systems fail, the very infrastructure of our shared knowledge could completely crumble.
Which brings us all the way back to that City Zero simulation we started with, and it leaves us with one final, absolutely vital question. Can humanity build technology faster than it can build wisdom? We have engineered a digital nervous system for our civilization that operates way faster than human judgment. The building blocks for an AI conflict aren't just theoretical, they are already deployed. So, the question now is, can we adapt our societies, our laws, and our own minds fast enough to maintain control? Definitely something to think about the next time you connect to the grid. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and remember to always keep questioning what you see.